regular scheduled council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think the roll is set with the addition of Mr. Addis.
And I'm here.
Approval of agenda.
Scrap Parks and Rec for new business. We didn't meet because of Christmas and all the updates we had to last month.
This particular agenda doesn't have it on there, but I inadvertently left closed session on there, even though I know there was nothing that we needed to go to closed session. So in the future, we won't even put that word on the agenda. That's my fault. And item G, well, I'll explain it when we get to it, but I'm not seeking any action on item G tonight.
President Gilbert, can I add to new business, since we're taking out Parks and Rec, I'll just add one in for discussion on noise ordinance.
We'll insert that in B.
Going to be discussion on it, I think.
Any others?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
The properly moved? Oh, I'm sorry. The properly moved and supported that we approve the agenda as amended. Questions on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment on the agenda.
Was that the CBDG? I'm sorry, I got a little lost.
If you have a comment on the agenda, ask.
So, right on the first one? A? Yeah. Okay, so that was good. All right.
The public hearing has been concluded. Approval of minutes, December 10th.
I have one amendment. The action taken on the closed session was to go forward as discussed.
And there was a different set of words used in the minutes. Yes. Okay. No. I'm sorry, Mr. Foley. You had, you want the words corrected?
Right.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with you.
Do we know what the words need to be updated to, or?
It's just supposed to be proceed as discussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the motion.
A motion that we approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported that we approve the minutes as amended. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Properly moved and supported that we accept, that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Coley,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Pankowski,
Yes.
trustee Meisen,
Yes.
trustee Brennemar,
Yes.
trustee Heschel,
Yes.
president Miller,
Yes. Motion carried. CDBG funding award. We have a total of $2,606 to give away, to give out. And it is my recommendation that we split this equally between Care House and Turning Point.
Care House is asking that we make donations in increments of 600.
We can bill out on any amount. The county application asks us to estimate per person, and that is a 600 per person estimate.
But we can go-
see, yeah, increments in different denominations or whatever.
Okay, that makes more sense. I make a motion that we award $1,303 to Care House and $1,303 to Turning Point.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported that with our CDBG funds, we award $1,303 to Care House and $1,303 to Turning Point. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
trustee Brennemar,
Yes.
trustee Meisen,
Yes.
trustee Coley,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Pankowski,
Yes.
trustee Heschel,
Yes.
president Miller,
Yes. Item B, the CDBG funding application. We are seeking permission from council to proceed with that application. And we will keep you abreast of any and all progress or lack of.
If we move forward with the application process and we do come up with roadblocks with the residents or anything like that where issues come up, there will be no cost to the village at that point if we decided not to go forward with the project itself, right? It's
No.
just the application.
No.
I make a motion that we approve application for CDBG funding in the amount of $150,000.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we proceed with the application in the CDBG funding in the amount of $150,000. Any questions on the motion?
President Gilbert, just looking at the engineering estimate that we had received, so the engineering, or well, the estimated cost of the project was $190,567, and the CDBG funding is $150K, so that means that there'd be $40K that would be passed on to the residents, or?
We purposely exceeded the amount,
Okay,
giving them some wiggle room to reduce the amount.
okay,
We're asking for more than what's available,
okay,
and hopefully they'll just cut it back to the 150 mark.
okay. So if we do get the 150, that it's just that we basically just, these numbers are, have like some padding in it?
Yes.
Okay, not necessarily that like certain areas would be crossed off, it's just,
No, because depending on if we are granted an award, a grant, then depending on the amount, we may have to revisit and prioritize the areas.
okay,
So that's when, we'll have to come back and say, okay, they only gave us 50 grand, so what's the priority?
okay. So we're definitely not planning on, we're gonna try to do this as much as possible using the CDBG.
Yes, yes.
Is this the one that we were the only one that applied for?
No, that was the previous one.
That was okay.
Did I call roll yet? Can we call vote yet? No, that was a question, sorry.
Okay to do that?
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The council meeting calendar for 2020.
I make a motion to approve the council meeting calendar for 2020.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we accept the meeting dates for 2020. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Parks and Rec. A few months ago, I got a email from the current Park and Rec chair that she was stepping back. I don't know if she's going to step aside, but she's not been active for 3 or 4 months now. And so I feel the need that we need to move on with a permanent chair, a new chair. And it is my recommendation that Tara Walsh be the new chair of the Park and Rec Committee. She's been pretty much involved in every activity that has been sponsored by the Park and Rec, and she's willing to put the time, energy, and effort into it. So I'm going to be appointing Tara as the new chair of the Park and Rec Committee. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're happy that your van is finally cleaned up.
Yes.
She's
Yes,
been
very much
carrying
so,
Park
thank
and Rec stuff around for ever.
Once.
Ordinance 370. It's an amendment to increase the fire department committee from 2 members to 3 members.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 370, an amendment to section 23-8 of the existing Village of New Haven Standing Committees Ordinance number 7, intended to increase the number of fire department committee members from 2 to 3 members.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we adopt ordinance 370. And it's an amendment to section 23-8. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Meisen?
Yes.
Trustee DeCola?
Yes.
Trustee Hatchett?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
Yes.
Trustee Pankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger? Yes. President Hilbert?
Yes. We have a lot of wind damage to this building, and we have been searching for contractors who are willing to just give a bid. And we've called and called and called, and we finally got a contractor out. On the other side over there, there's a lot of trim and fascia boards and panels that are missing and blown off. And there's a lot of local companies that can't do this heavy industrial commercial painting and whatnot. So we did find one company out of New Baltimore that can do it. And I'm not so sure if we want to proceed with this.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if we don't do anything right now, how much more damage will we incur?
Hard to say.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't,
There are pieces missing, and I'm sure in a good windstorm, because those pieces are missing, some additional pieces could be, we talk about our lease and the maintenance and stuff like that, and yeah, we're probably, based on the lease that we currently have, we probably are responsible for the maintenance, in spite of the shoddy workmanship, So,
Does any of this qualify for submission to an insurance company?
I don't know if you want to make a $15,000 claim when you got what's our deductible? It's only $1,000?
Yes.
Was it one event or was this just building degradation?
It's just, yeah, over time.
Oh, so it wasn't like this windstorm pulled all this off, sort of deal? Okay.
No, we couldn't honestly make that claim because some pieces that were blown off, we actually had a local guy put them back up. And one thing this contractor did find, that the fasteners that were used for this heavy trim work, they didn't use the proper fasteners. They used what we would consider just residential nails instead of industrial, commercial screws. And we think that's why, you know, these things are just coming off. You know, they're just not being held properly.
Where this stuff is missing, are you experiencing any interior damage, water drips?
There is in one area back there, but we're not sure if it's because of the trim work or just the roof itself is leaking. Because we had some clogged up drain on the top of the roof that we had to get up there and
Clean it out.
clean and whatnot. So we're not sure if it was a direct result.
Can we table this until next month and see if there's any additional damage?
I'm sorry.
Can we table this until next month to see if there's any additional damage in a month?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Because this is probably a bad time to do it anyways.
Yeah.
You know.
And with the storm coming up yet again this weekend, if there's going to be additional damage, it'll come out.
Okay.
When I saw this on the agenda, my first reaction was to whether or not we should be paying it, given the circumstances with it. So, I mean, whether there is more damage or not, I'm still in that boat where I don't.
Well, it occurred that this happened during the prayer lease. The argument could be made, but the bottom line is, let's wait and see.
Yeah.
One more month is going to
Okay. Can I get a motion to table?
make a motion to table. Order construction and repair.
We probably moved and support that we table this item. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item G, the sewer rate. You received a couple scenarios. And I'm not going to ask that we address this tonight. I think we'd be better served if we continue to digest it and schedule a public hearing, because we need to fully explain what is going on here. And the whys, while there's a good chance that only a handful of people may show up, but it's important that this is put out there correctly. You know, I think part of the comments that was sent to you talks about a 2013, 2014 Plant Moran recommendation that the rate should have been increased way back then, and it never was. So I think we need to, it needs to happen. There's no doubt about that, okay? But I think we'd be wise to schedule a public hearing and advertise it, and let's see who shows up so that we can correctly explain the whys and the how comes and all the things that are related.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I just want to refresh my mind. Recommendation was passed. Did the council at that time just accept the information, or did they vote to do this increase?
I'm sorry, say that again?
When Plant Moran gave this recommendation,
I wasn't here.
right, at that particular, it must have been 2013, right? But there has to be some type of documentation.
It's my understanding that council at the time chose to not raise the rate.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Because I think I was sitting, probably where Tara is sitting right now, you know, and I remember some of the conversation back then.
Can I help? Mr.
Sure.
President? Okay. In fact, maybe you'll recall, in a recent case that touched upon this, that has been settled for some time, we saw those documents, and your memory is correct. The council chose not to take Plant Moran's recommendation.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
President Gilbert, I would also ask, looking at the sewer analysis spreadsheet in the operating tab, I wonder if there's some things that we have in the operating GLs that maybe could be moved around, and maybe I'm not using the right terminology here, but you know, for example, I see street sweeping for $2,000 as an operating expense for the sewer. And I question if that's really a sewer expense, or if that could maybe be moved somewhere else that could tighten up our operating a little bit.
It depends on how you look at it. On one hand, it is a sewer expense because sweeping the streets keep the garbage out of the sewer.
Right.
So but we also, I think in that particular item, I think we also shared with local and major roads also. So it's kind of, you'll find that some of those things are spread over 3 or 4 different.
Yeah, because I guess what, as I was doing the analysis and looking at the commodity charge tab and compared to the debt tab and everything, even at the highest number that's provided, it still puts us in a deficit year over year, it looks like, where the incoming amount is still lower than what the operating expenses are.
Yes, and that's part of the issue right now.
So, yeah, so even all the recommendations still doesn't fix the problem.
This would not wipe it out.
Right.
But we like we talked back in October, November, that we would come with something that we could at least have a starting point, and then next year we'll just have to keep bumping it up. But this right here will help, and it would also help to settle that sewer debt that we're constantly fighting with.
And then is there the possibility, I know with the changes that we made previously, we kind of played with like the readiness to serve versus the bottom line. Is there any way we could do some finagling with that as well, or something in here that, where we up the sewer charge, but then maybe lower one of the other charges? Or,
I think there was what, Sandy, please come up.
Right now where it sits is we do not have a wet readiness to serve in the sewer.
Right.
We don't. And the only thing else we have that we split is the billing charge, which doesn't generate that much. It's 17 grand, I think it was 17 grand for each fund. So I think our goal is basically trying to get our commodity charge over so we can cover our operating costs.
right.
And then we can start looking the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be probably 3 years before we can get out of that sewer debt. So if we can get that, at least that come over to the operating, then we can start working on the commodity, on the debt portion of it. We're still at $1,038,000. I'm hoping that we can cut that down to $300,000 this year that we're sitting in right now. So.
I was expressing my concern, I think while you were out of the room, but even looking at the commodity charge analysis, I don't think any of those numbers even brings us.
No.
So, and I was questioning too, some of the GLs that are listed or some of the line items, like uniforms, street sweeping, stuff like that. I know President Gilbert mentioned that it's kind of balanced across all of them. I just wonder if there's any way to shift stuff around so that operating comes down.
2,000 was 2,000 dollars I did. That right there is basically just getting rid of the disposal of the stuff that we pick up from the streets from the sewer. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can be doing, stuff like that. But right now, what our goal is to at least get some of that shifted over to the operating. And then we can start working on figuring out how we can get that stuff back down. Maybe we can institute some kind of readiness to serve and start building it up a little bit at a time. But it's really hard right now to figure out what we can do and not do,
We've had some discussions, Sandy and I have had some discussions, and that we probably thought would have been too aggressive. And if the current growth somehow, then we would say, oh crap, we would have to walk back. And so while we're being conservative, because we don't want to we don't ever want to be in a situation where we have to give something to the resident and then have to come back and try to take it back. You know, so and this right here is, I think it's going to be a reasonable starting point that the residents can accept and will accept. And you know, with the full understanding that this is going to have to happen almost every year for the next few years until we can get out of this situation.
That's the kicker, as the Dutch said. So, I mean, just look, if you look at this, I'm writing this to serve right now, we have like 2,000 units out there. That generates $2,000 a month. It's only $24,000 for 1 hour for writing this to serve. That's not getting us out of trouble. Units. I based that numbers on 8,600 units. That's been our average for taking out the high and low for 3 years ago, what our usage has been. Our usage is based on our water usage. So we don't have, we don't have that meter and stuff like that. So whatever our water usage is, that's what we're billing the customers. Past 6 months, it's been 9,000 units. But are we going to keep that up? So it's really hard to figure out what's the highs and lows and stuff like that with our use and stuff like that. We could have a dry summer again, and then our usage would be really up like we did this past summer. So it's really hard to gauge that stuff. It's like our building stuff, our growth and stuff like that. We did put 100 new houses down, so that's going to make our SUV and stuff like that go up, and our usage go up. So.
And we also just last month approved to not count the sewer if that can be proven that it was a sprinkler. So that could possibly see that number go down for the sewer use.
Well, if you think about it too, our rate right now, our sewer rate is $4.26. Somebody using 2-3 units, if we raise up to $5 or something like that, it's $1.50 for 2 units. So you can look at it that way also. I mean, over the overall picture for the month. I mean, so what are they gonna? What can we give to the residents so they won't talk about it too much? But as you can see, yes, Plant Moran, and we didn't go with that recommendation, but that was back in 2013 that they were not going to recommend us to go up like that. Our bottom line looks okay. That's because we're getting all this money for the debt, and that's our issue right there. So we need to keep that money slide over to the operating like we did with the water, and that's our goal. We're trying to figure out a solution.
We don't have that flexibility on the sewer side that we have.
Not yet. Not yet. To give, yeah. Hopefully we can get that debt down. Anything else? So I'll just give you scenarios. If you guys have any questions, please send them to me. We'll try to figure out something. But I wanted to list you see what we generate. So anything like billing charge and revenues to serve, it's basically $2,000 per buck that we generate a month. And now the units for the commodity is totally different, like $8,600. So, and we need $200,000 towards our operating costs.
We're, just FYI, constantly looking at how we're being billed and who's being billed and what's being billed to each department. I think over the last year or two, we've moved a number of things around where we found that certain items, at one point, trash was being billed for street sweeping or something to that effect, and no, that's not that doesn't, so there's all kind of things that we're constantly seeing and finding and moving, and whereas one fund shouldn't pay for everything when that activity is being shared by 3 or 4 different funds, so we, are just constantly trying to balance it out, And it usually takes us a good year, once we've made some of those moves, it usually takes a good year to see if that was the right move and see if it does balance out, because you got to wait for the activity to actually,
Of course, we also have, our ordinances that we have to revisit this in September. Also, we have to look at our trash. We have to do that trash again. We probably have to increase that because of our contract. I think by then we'll get to another audit and see where our books are sitting that way, and we can figure out some even more how that stuff's coming. We're seeing us collecting more and more every month for the sewer debt and stuff like that. I think we're at $70,000 right now, a month that we're collecting for sewer debt. Plus the 185 that we're going to take from general funds. So I'm hoping, like I said, with the form, I want to see the formula, what the auditors come up with and see how much we actually take off of the debt this year. And then we're going to start working again, see another picture, see if we can get that deficit cleared up faster than we had anticipated. So trying to figure it out.
So when you spread certain line items over, say 3 different funds, like say it's $6,000 and it's 2, 2, and 2, but if you find that it's benefiting one area more than the others, does it turn into like 4, 1, 1, like kind of?
Basically, usually like with the water and sewer, I've been taking it down and it's been like 60-40.
Okay.
So I've been looking at more, I've been doing half and half, so I've been kind of taking it more towards the water. The water's being profitable right now. And a lot of that stuff we split up. So with water and sewer. So yeah, we continue trying to make it look better.
But on Mr. Picoli's, question, grass cutting. When they cut the grass in the cemetery, it's billed to the cemetery. When they cut it in the park, it's billed to the parks. When they cut the shoulder of the road, then it's billed to local or major streets.
So that you can track actually how
Right.
much time is spent.
And they have to fill out a sheet, they fill out a weekly log that tells us 2 hours on this, 3 hours on that, 4 hours on this. And so that's how we kind of track as to where, to make sure everybody is being fairly charged.
So it happens every month too. Same thing with salaries and stuff like that. Okay.
So with that being said, like I said, I would love to schedule a public hearing prior to next council meeting to talk about this sewer rate recommendation, and then we can act on it next month. If it's your wish.
Is the recommendation then for the $6 or something else?
No. We are gonna, at minimum, ask for the $5 increase, for the increase up to $5.
Up to $5.
Yes.
But that'll all be after a public hearing.
Yes.
You guys start moving on.
That'll be explained at the public hearing, and then at the February meeting, we can decide as a board. Like I said, at minimum, we're gonna be asking for the $5.
So when are we expecting to see a public hearing?
Which would be prior to the February meeting, and we can do it like we did tonight at 6:30,
So 28th?
February.
So it'll be February 11th.
That's 6:30.
Oh, before the meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did for CDBG.
Does anybody need any more information that I can give them to make a decision? And it's pretty cut and dry what we have to come up with.
And I think this were, even at $5, I think we're still comparable to even other communities around.
Oh, we are.
And I'm being conservative in my towers too. I mean, problem is we're all based on usage, so hopefully our usage will go up.
Keep
And we're going to have comparables for the town hall meeting with other communities, so we can say, hey, we're not the other ones feeling the ding.
I can do that.
Yeah, I remember, I think, wasn't it Macomb Township just raised their rates, and it was even retroactive.
Yeah.
Washington's about to raise theirs. Fraser is through the roof.
Okay.
I think they're ready just to serve us like $27 a
Oh
month.
my.
Fraser's through the roof on that.
There's a lot of them out there just.
So yeah, they're getting, but if we had comparables, that might calm
Calm
the
down.
natives
Yeah.
down a little bit, so.
Chesterfield, which is coming, they didn't calm down because they're ready to serve on both of them, like 659 or something like that, and both of the funds, I think, or something like that. I can't
Okay, so are we in agreement
Yes.
that we should hold a public hearing prior to February's council meeting? And if so, can I get that in the form of a motion?
Make a motion that we have a public hearing prior to the February 11th council meeting for 6:30 to discuss the sewer rates.
Support.
They're probably moving us that we schedule a public hearing at 6:30 p.m. prior to the February council meeting to discuss sewer rates. Any questions on the motion?
I just have a question. If we have questions, do you want a cutoff date that you want us to get those by? Or do you want us to send them to you?
Yesterday. Yeah, send them,
Like the week before fair?
yeah.
Okay,
You know, by the end of the month, this is what, the 14th, so by the end of this month.
okay.
And that way we can, if there's something that we gotta reach out and, you know, we'll have time to get an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. No attorney items? Payment of bills.
I move that we pay the bills for January in the amount of $175,877.13.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported that we pay the bills for the month of January in the amount of $175,877.13. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee McCoy?
Yes.
Trustee Meisner?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Pankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Whitmore?
Yes.
Trustee Hatchett?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes. Treasury report.
Total village cash assets of $4,551,904.83.
Make a motion that we receive and file the treasurer's report.
Support.
Properly moved and supported that we receive and file the treasurer's report. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Madam Clerk, you want your stuff by the second.
Yes, sir.
New business, planning commission update.
The planning commission met on the 7th of this month. We're continuing to review the master plan. We had a discussion about enforcing the new sign ordinance. The planner and our attorney are going to get together and with the code enforcement officer to develop a plan, inventory, everything out there, notify our businesses, and move forward from there. And we're going to meet again on Tuesday, the 4th of February.
Let me know when that, the planner, the attorney, and the code enforcement officer are gonna be getting together, right?
I can tell you that. I've seen something come through here. I'll get you that information.
All right, thank you. Item B, noise.
So, a topic that I see come up on social media quite often is just a question of whether or not the village has a noise ordinance in place. And it took a lot of digging through E-code to really find something that I think was applicable. And I found under general legislation, zoning, so this is the E-code number, but it's 515-90, performance standards for all land uses. And it talks about the noise limits depending on the zoning. So single-family residential from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. has a 60 decibel noise limit. And from 9 p.m. at night until 6 a.m. the following morning, a 55 decibel limit. So I guess two kind of a double-edged sword here. One, I wonder if maybe we could look at how to revamp this so that it's a little bit easier to find, read, dissect, and understand. But secondly, I mean, I love the idea of having the ordinance. I don't know how enforceable it is. And I don't know if we call MCSD and say, hey, this is really obnoxious noise. Is MCSD going to enforce it?
They will.
Yeah.
I would hope they would.
They shut down my party.
So, I don't know I don't even really know, I mean, 60 decibels and 55 decibels, I don't know what that really equates to, but, you know, I just don't know if maybe if we could take another look at this, have the attorney look at maybe what's comparable to other communities.
Sure, absolutely.
Just so that we have something a little bit more tangible. It seems like it's something that comes up a lot in the residents. They're always asking, what's the noise ordinance?
Because I know from the builders, you know, it's typical sun up to sundown, but not prior to 7 a.m.
Right. And we've even had in Decorah Park, we've had incidents where it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and they're still using excavators and heavy machinery in the construction zones.
Yeah, see, but in the summertime, it doesn't get dark at 10.
Right,
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It never gets done.
Yeah.
And that is all temporary, and
It
it's
is.
a good temporary.
Absolutely.
We have to,
Absolutely, within reason.
Yeah, I think my neighbor's lawn service, I think they pull up and they sit in their truck and they watch their watch. And then at 7:01, I'm like, okay, you know?
Yeah, well, and that's a good point too, because according to this ordinance, it's actually 6 a.m.
That's 7 a.m.
Yeah, so that's why I was wondering about taking a look at
Can I
this.
ask you, do you know when the ordinance was passed?
I don't know. if that's in there.
Actually, that's what I'm thinking. I wonder if the difference in the
Yeah. And I thought it was just a weird spot for it too, to be under zoning, and land uses. So it has to do with noise and vibration, odor, gases, glare and heat. So it's the all around like nuisances. But I was just wondering if maybe we should have something separate.
Sure.
Maybe.
So take a look at it.
Yeah, thank you.
Fire Department Committee.
We did meet last month. We did not have an agenda. We just sat down with kind of a forum and what we hope to accomplish. I think the primary goal among the three of us is to evaluate the budget. We're meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. to take another look at that. Unfortunately, I think a couple of us have ran into a few roadblocks in gathering information for that. But I think we're kicking it off at least. So we'll be meeting again tomorrow. We're going to get a little bit further into budgets and solving the issues that we're seeing out. So hopefully a bigger update in February.
Road Committee.
Yeah, I brought something before the road committee last month, and it started off as just a general discussion after a planning commission meeting where they were talking about safety along the Gratiot corridor. And we were looking at the intersection of 27, Clark and Gratiot. And I just brought up an observation that our roads don't line up with Gratiot. 27 miles a little further north than Clark Street is. So you have traffic actually doing a shift in the middle of Gratiot. And I was looking at it, and on the southeast corner, which is undeveloped, if you extend the road to that road flare over there, you actually straighten out the intersection. So you don't have that situation where a person making a left turn north onto Gratiot will actually have 3 separate lanes of traffic to consider when making that turn. You'll have the left turn, the oncoming traffic, people going westbound, and people making a right. And I'm not a traffic expert, but it will simplify people, the things you have to consider when you're traversing through that intersection. I emailed MDOT to find out what level of involvement they would need in a project like that. And they said if we're not touching Gratiot itself, they are only in an advisory capacity. But they did forward the email to somebody that does their planning, and they do plan on modernizing that intersection. But they have nothing in the pipeline right now. They just have to plan that we're going to do something with the pedestrian traffic. But they said that if we move forward with a major project on that, they will actually consider moving that project up to coincide with ours. So if we do a project down there to try to increase the safety of that, MDOT will also do the could possibly do the pedestrian portion of it too, to modernize the intersection and bring it up to code. So moving forward, I don't know if we have to have our engineer look at, because we don't, it's just a concept, right? There's no dollar amount attached to it, so that's very important.
Friday morning, I'm meeting with the director of the Macomb County Department of Roads.
Okay.
Okay, and that's one of the subjects that we're gonna touch on. Because I want to see, because I think there's some federal funds out there that come through the county that, based on the number of accidents and fatalities at the intersection, would probably qualify.
And I
So,
think that's what brought that up, because we just had, right before that, there was a major accident that closed the intersection for quite some time, and that's what kick-started it.
so there's two things that we're going to talk about, that intersection and a left turn light right here on Main Street. So, I'm meeting with them Friday morning.
What about New Haven Road and 26 Mile? A turn signal?
Last I talked to him, we were doing a 6-month study on that, which ended. I never did contact him to find out the results of it, but it ended, I think, in November.
There's been another fatality there.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's
I'll follow up with that.
Is that setbacks currently owned by us, or would that be eminent domain?
I don't know.
Sure.
The extra space that would need to be taken from 27?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it
where
already
the easement
roadway
lands,
or-
I don't know. Because what looks like happened, the reason why they're offset is they kept putting, it looks like lantern flares on both sides so that the intersection got away from itself. Is what it looks like. I don't know, but I'm just
That is what it
a
is.
guy looking at a satellite view and seeing that it doesn't line up. That's all I see, so.
When he brought the pictures to the meeting, which I don't drive the intersection too often, but from the aerial view, it really,
It looks like two people were building a road and.
yeah. One was drinking and one wasn't, or they both was drinking. They did not.
Yeah, and when you're driving it, it feels that way too.
And plus you got the northeast and the southwest corners are curved
Yeah.
and gutted,
Yeah, the aesthetics will
and then the other two aren't.
Right.
And it would be a lot neater intersection if all four were and it was properly aligned.
Right.
So
So,
it'd have to be-
We'll see what we can do with that. Hopefully we'll have some luck. Thank you. Ways and Means meeting request. There was the Ways and Means was supposed to have a wage opener with Mrs. Kazel. And I don't know if it's still your intent.
We didn't address that with the pay increase?
No, that was a separate issue.
So you want us to meet to discuss a wage opener for the accountant?
It was suggested by the Ways and Means Committee that you would have a wage reopener. When we brought the clerical and the DPW contract to the Ways and Means, and at the same time, it was mentioned that you would have a wage reopener the first of the year for Sandy. So I'm just following up on, are you still looking to do that, or is it something that you're not looking to do, or?
I remember a wage reopener for the bonus.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what the reopener was for, and then it was recommended not to have one, or last year now, for this year.
In December, right?
That's what I remember.
But
the
I
wage
thought it
reopener for
was
for
across the
to include
board,
the bonus.
The 3% across the board.
Well, yeah, that has taken place, but, you know, when I was asked to recommend a bonus for Sandy, and I think at the December meeting, I said I wouldn't, because you guys were gonna do a wage reopener anyways.
I don't remember that at all. And the wage reopener would have nothing to do with the bonus. I mean, if you want, we could meet and we could recommend the standard 3% as everybody else, but the bonus has nothing to do with the wage reopener.
Well, the 3% is already in place based on the contract.
The 3% for, Sandy, is your contract every year?
No, I think it was 2021.
So I'm saying there's a 3% built in annually,
Yes.
January 1.
Yes.
Okay, for the duration of that contract.
Yes.
So you want Ways and Means to meet for,
It kept on getting discussed that we would have a wage opener at January.
of 2021?
That was not said, so I'm not sure.
Okay, if your contract is good until 2021, if it's a 3%, then we meet in 2021 to discuss a new contract, like any other employee, right?
Yes, ma'am, but that's not what I was understanding what was on the contract. I was not.
I'm confused.
I'm confused too, because it kept on saying that, there would be a wage opener with the employee, which was me, in January. That's all I'm making this up, kept getting said in that number.
Okay, I'm sorry, kid. Did you get a 3% this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then we're good until 2021.
That's fine.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So was there anything else you wanted us to?
No, you can, like, mix that down.
Mixed it up? Or the next?
Okay.
Okay.
Call from the floor. Call from the table.
I have a question. I know it probably was around this time last year, maybe a little bit later, but at one point in time, we were talking about doing an RFP for the 47 acres next to Amherst. Is there any desire?
Council dropped the ball on that because President Dover asked us to get suggestions for that RFP, and I don't think any of us emailed. I'm interested in revisiting it, but I think we need to be a little bit more proactive in what we want to see there.
Because I was not going to create an RFP for all council input.
And I'm not pointing fingers, I just, is there still a desire that I think, land prices are good right now. Maybe there could be some interest, I don't know. It sounds like spring, from what I hear from my real estate friends, that spring is already kicking off hot, so
Did we already have an RFP for that property at any point?
we never, in the past, I don't think in the past.
No, we just put it on the market.
Yeah, which it's, I think, still up at 385,
Is it still on the market?
350.
That-
It's still on the market.
That contract has expired, but it's still,
This line is still,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean,
value of that piece of property still? I mean, is
No.
it a sellable value?
The initial appraisal came in at 285 on that piece of property, and I would say that the issue with that, even at that time, was that the underground was so expensive that even the 285 it's a true land value, but for a builder to actually come in and develop, 285 is still extremely high. It puts them in at over $30,000 per lot. I think the ballpark was actually at 32. So it was pretty high for what and that should be, just from a real estate perspective, closer to 10% of the build cost. So you're looking at $310,000 properties in order for them to actually cash out at a reasonable amount, just on the underground perspective, so.
I guess my question then is, if it is the desire of, all of us on council, that maybe, do we re-add it? Do we add it to the next agenda, or, what do we need to do to kick it off, if it is our desire that we want to do an RFP or revisit this?
An RFP for what?
For the,
No, I mean,
Land
what are we?
So I think the desire is that, let me step back. So originally, when we put it on the market, we had the two offers, both of them drastically under what the sale price was, right? And I think that while one of the bids or offers was considerably less, I don't know if we're even allowed to say what, but the one that was so low might have been backed by somebody who at least could actually make something happen with the property, whereas the higher bid, they just wanted it to sit on it. So I think the point of the RFP was that if we get an RFP, we put it out for bid, that we can actually put some stipulations in place that if we award the RFP to somebody, that they can actually develop the property.
For the village?
Well,
We
I
own the
guess I'm not-
property, if
I'm
we
not-
put out an RFP, are we requesting bids to develop the property for the village?
We're requesting bids to develop the property for single-family homes as proposed, but we can't put that stipulation on a standard purchase agreement. So essentially, I think what we were looking at was deeding the property over to somebody if they were going to meet specific
Okay,
yeah.
development
so this
markers.
will give us a wider scope of somebody that actually use the property.
So we could put some requirements in place that if we're gonna deed this property over to somebody, that they're actually going to develop it and not just sit on it as an investment.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the conversation. The two offers that we had, one was a developer that wanted to put houses, one was a farmer who wanted to hold it. But we couldn't say to the builder, you have to have this many units in place by X if we're gonna take your low offer. But with an RFP, we'd be able to
do
put,
that.
yeah, you'd be able to put some more guidelines and say, you have to meet these benchmarks or else, and then have some recourse.
Okay, and have we determined what our wish is as far as development of the property?
That's the question.
That's kind of where we hit the wall, was President Dilbert asked each of us to submit what we would like to see ideally in an RFP, so that at the next meeting after that, we could put it together, and I take full responsibility for my part in that, because I know a lot about, I've done a lot of research on it, and I totally spaced it.
You've done some homework on it, so you've seen RFPs from other communities about properties owned by those communities?
No, I wouldn't even know where to research, but I'm more than willing to. I did research in terms of what the cost of the underground would be, how many units were platted, what had changed between the original proposal, because it used to be proposed with like a couple public parks and a pool in there. So I went through that and how many homes it would be, the revenues that it would bring to the village if it was, like, if we sold it at, $285 or $350, what it's listed at right now, we get that initial gain, but if we were to sell it for significantly less, what those gains would be over the next few years. I'm not frankly sure if there's precedence for RFPs on single-family home development. There may be.
Well, let's set that precedent, if that's your wish.
Yeah, I just wonder, we have 47 acres. The other thing though that I would be hesitant of in the same breath is that, I believe there's some intentions for Pembroke to expand. There's also the development going on in Amherst. There's still Decorah Park. I don't want to saturate the market with land, to be developed, but I'd like to capitalize and get as much developed as we can while it's still hot.
And I would still like to go on record as expressing my desire that 47 acres become a park.
Splash pad. And we could consider that too. I don't know. I guess, my main point of bringing it up tonight is just we have 47 acres, it's sitting there, the market's hot. Do we do something? What do we do with it? We might as well put it to uses. We could even try to do both, have the front of it be a park and the back half be subdivision or
With the
something.
planning commission, maybe look at the 47 acres, look at a development opportunity for the residents, would portion off part of it and sell off a certain acreage. I think that divesting ourselves of an entire property may not benefit the current residents. So if there was, a lot of communities have more than one park in town, with other amenities, or if there was a swale between Amherst and the new development, so that Amherst, that's something, I would hesitate to put out an RFP until we've made a concrete decision what we want to do with the property.
Absolutely, I agree.
And you have to look at the property. There's 20% of it is not developable because it's wetland.
Yes.
Okay.
It's split.
Which separates the flag that goes into Amherst. Now, I would look to sell off the flag to a builder because it's in Amherst already. But the Clark Street frontage, I still say should be a park, which is going to help development in Amherst and Pembroke park across the street with the right amenities, I think would help those developments immensely.
So before we write an RFP, we need to determine how much of the property we want to sell.
And the other thing to consider is the value on it from the builders that were initially interested was that the plating was already completed, because the engineering to replat would be expensive for them. And it isn't a new development, it's actually attached to Amherst at both phases.
If we were to split it and have the one section be the subdivision in the back, and then the front for a park or some other amenity, would that then have to be replatted entirely, or?
I would guess so, yeah.
Well, even that front part, it doesn't, because, does anybody know the acreage of the front part of it, not including?
I actually think I still have
28, I
everything.
I will say something less than 30.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't all have to be parked either, that you could line some houses along this Cranston here.
Well, that actually has a park built into it, that front, but it's similar to what's already in Amherst. That's actually the more valuable piece to the builders, because that was 95 units. The back phase is only 44.
And was any part of that property developed with water and sewer, or?
So the answer to that is no. But if you actually walk back there, there's some electrical improvements, but it doesn't look like it ever got to the point of finalizing the permits. So Macomb County, when I called them, said there's a possibility that some of it was done, but when they stepped back out, they just stepped back out, and they said they can't give us a percentage that was completed, but they said as far as they're concerned, the only thing that ever existed on paper is the lead-ins.
So the other thing I would also be interested in too is, I mean, if we were able to sell off a portion of that property, I wonder if the current owner of the property around Haven Ridge Park would be amicable to letting us purchase some property off of them to expand Haven Ridge, and then make that, maybe add some amenities to it.
You know, we made a phone call a few months ago and they wanted $1 million.
Is that for the whole, or just for a separate?
And I won't tell you what my response was.
It would be nice to have a park a little more conveniently located in Amherst.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
That Tart Street location, I think, is perfect with the right amenities.
There are grants that could be applied for
They're out there.
a recreational building.
I like the idea, especially, you know, coming from the perspective of trying to plan the 150th. You know, we're really limited from a village standpoint of where we can have activities and where we can't. You know, it would be nice to have more parks or a large park or something that could be a focal point.
What about that, and it's just spitballing into vacant land also, but if we end up looking at having to take any portion of that corner over via eminent domain, that's all open space as well that is currently on the market too. I mean, I know we own property too, so we should do something with it. I don't disagree that a park, especially closer to the new development properties, is appealing, because I think you see a lot of people not heading over downtown.
I mean, I just see the hometown to just approve 3 new parks.
And having a park with something other than basketball
Exactly.
would be a plus.
And there are grants out there, but and those are the kind of grants that we haven't gone after, because the current park cannot accommodate them. And Clark Street has not been designated. So I can't apply for something that I have nowhere to put it.
What is that zoned as?
So,
Single family?
I think that's a 2 of these.
yeah, which is like,
Single family.
Is there any other kind of residence that,
I think you're thinking of Pembroke.
no. I'm thinking of multifamily, or which might attract more buildings.
I think actually they strayed away from that in Pembroke where it was zoned that way. We just recently rezoned that because it's not, they have some, like Lombardo has some developments in Macomb Township that are like that.
Yeah.
And they're not selling at the rate that the single family homes are, so they asked us for rezoning.
Yeah, because I know Lombardo had a couple of different, not that I think Lombardo's the greatest builder in the world, but they did have some multiple.
They do, yeah, and they're just from a saleable perspective, they're sitting on the market longer.
Okay.
And kind of the feedback they were getting was that it was a little bit, because the portion that abuts Gratiot that would connect to Pembroke, that was like, I think it was gonna be like 2 condos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we have to.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on, we consider all that.
Yeah, do we want to maybe set like a workshop for this or something, or?
Well, I mean, I think the planning commission is involved in community development, parks. Would that be your purview?
We could talk about it. We could, maybe our planner would be helpful in steering us in some directions.
Yeah.
Maybe we kind of
Yeah.
name of things that we were thinking of, and maybe he has some experience with some other.
Yeah, and he would
things
know
other
the legalities
communities.
of carving out a piece of land and what would be an appropriate size. So maybe if you guys could
Yeah,
kind of bang it around, let us know.
yeah, I will let the chair know.
Thank you.
Alrighty, coffin table.
I think we should think about setting up budget hearings. It's January, a lot of communities start in December, and.
Set up a what?
Budget hearing, budget workshop,
We,
budget,
oh, okay, the workshop.
budget workshop. Not a hearing, a workshop, I'm sorry, it's late, I'm tired, workshop. Yeah, you know what, because, I know I'd like to talk with you on a one-on-one basis, and maybe other members of council would, about a clearer picture of the total on wages, total on benefits, total on revenues, total on sewer debt, water debt, how much do we need, how much do we owe? One concise, presentation. A lot of communities do worksheets. Instead of, DPW, wages on streets, wages on cemetery, wages. So we have to go through all of these different files, to add them all up and figure out, well, the wages are in 6 different locations, so we gotta add them all up to get a clear picture of what wages are, for example. So, if we could schedule a workshop, I think maybe it would help all of us get a clearer picture of where our budget is and where it's going. So maybe think about that maybe in March or February.
We have to set a public hearing in February for the bill and the budget.
Okay.
And then March, we have to approve it, so.
End of February maybe? Middle of February? Valentine's Day? I'll
As
be
long as the
down.
budget's approved by March,
Yeah.
the budget has to be approved by March 31st.
Okay, so,
Middle of February.
okay.
Sorry for that.
All right, can you kind of pick out a day and let us know when you're available, because I know you're a busy lady? And maybe we can get some facts and figures so that we have a clearer picture of revenues and expenditures in sewer and water debt. Thank you, ma'am.
Coffin table. Motion in order.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Whatever.